I was just playing through Arkham Knight again, and you know how you get into a character's head? But I was looking some stuff up online afterward, and I got stuck on this idea that's been around forever. But when you really lay it all out, it's kind of wild. The question is Batman a psychopath? And I don't just mean like, oh, he's dark and broody. I mean a clinical, by the book, no empathy psychopath. And I know it sounds crazy, right? He's the hero. But just hear me out. Let's actually try to build the case. All right, first off, the dude is an absolute top to bottom control freak. It's not just that he wants to stop crime, he has to control everything. He operates completely outside the law because the law isn't good enough for him. He decides the rules, he decides the punishment. That need to impose his own order on a whole city, that's a serious red flag. And it gets worse. You've probably heard of the Tower of Babel storyline, right? He has secret, detailed plans to take down every single one of his friends, his allies in the Justice League, just in case they go rogue. Think about that. That's not a Boy Scout being prepared. That is a level of paranoia that says, I can't trust anyone, ever. True psychopaths see people not as friends, but as tools or obstacles. And that looks an awful lot like how he treats them. And then you've got the mask itself. Psychologists talk about how psychopaths wear a mask of sanity to blend in and hide their true empty selves. Batman's mask is just literal. When he puts on that suit, it's like a switch flips. Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy, just checks out. He becomes this thing, a predator, a force of nature that uses pure terror to get what he wants. It's a dissociation. It lets him be as ruthless and brutal as he needs to be without having to connect it to his human self. That's textbook manipulation of identity. And that leads to what's probably the most convincing point, the idea of a heroic psychopath. It's a theory about people who have all the wiring, the lack of fear, the violent impulses, the obsession, but they just happen to aim it at a target society thinks is good. Batman's entire life, his entire mission is a reaction to one single moment of trauma, but he didn't process it, he didn't heal. He weaponized his rage. It's a compulsive, never-ending drive to punish. So let's recap the case. You have a guy who ignores all social and legal rules, he's emotionally detached, using a second persona to commit extreme violence, he's obsessed with control, is deeply paranoid, and channels his rage into a single-minded, violent crusade. That sounds pretty damning, right? Case closed? But that's where, for me, the whole theory just falls apart. And it falls apart because of one huge, glaring thing that a true psychopath would never have. His code. His one rule. He does not kill. Think about that from a purely practical standpoint. A real psychopath is all about efficiency and self-interest. The easiest, most permanent way to solve the Joker problem would have been to snap his neck decades ago. A psychopath wouldn't lose a wink of sleep over it. It would just be problem solved. But Batman can't. He physically and mentally cannot cross that line, because he knows that if he does, there's no difference between him and them. That line isn't a strategy, it's a cage he built for himself to keep the monster inside from ever getting out. A psychopath doesn't need a cage because they don't think there's a monster to begin with. And that's when you realize you've been looking at it all wrong. All that stuff we talked about, the control, the obsession, the detachment, it's not coming from a lack of emotion, it's coming from an overwhelming amount of it. He's not a psychopath. He's a man with profound, crippling, unresolved trauma. All of it, the suit, the cave, the rules, it's a coping mechanism. It's the most elaborate, insane, and honestly unhealthy coping mechanism ever invented. Deep down, he's not the Batman. He's still the 8-year-old boy who watched his parents die in an alley and felt completely, utterly powerless. His entire life is a desperate attempt to gain control over the chaos that shattered his world. He's not driven by a need for dominance. He's driven by a terrified little kid's promise that he will never let anyone feel that powerless again. That's not psychopathy. That is empathy, buried under a mountain of pain and armor. So what's the final call? Is Batman a psychopath? Nah. Not even close. Is he okay? Also, nah. The guy is a walking encyclopedia of psychological issues. He's obsessive, he's paranoid, he's emotionally stunted. He probably has a severe case of PTSD. He checks a lot of the superficial boxes for psychopathy, but he's missing the one ingredient that matters: that cold, black void where guilt and empathy are supposed to be. If anything, Batman isn't defined by a lack of guilt, he's defined by his guilt. Guilt over his parents, guilt over every Robin he's put in danger, guilt over every person he couldn't save. He's not a man who enjoys hurting people. He's a wound that's trying to be the bandage. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. It's one of those things that's just so much fun to kick around. I'm curious what you guys think though. Is the no-kill rule really proof of his humanity, or is it just the ultimate act of ego? The way for him to prove he's better than everyone else? Drop a comment below. I'd love to read your takes.